everyone, and welcome to the Her Hoop Stats podcast. I am Chelsea Leite, and I am joined by Coach Helen Williams today on Thursday, June 19th. If you haven't subscribed yet to the Her Hoop Stats podcast, make sure to do so below, wherever you're listening, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever. And make sure to follow us on X, Blue Sky, Instagram, and subscribe to herhoopstats.com for all of the latest stats and updates. Coach is laughing at me because
you have to remember to get all of those in at the beginning of our broadcast, and so I can see the wheels turning to make sure you didn't forget anything.
Exactly. I'm just ripping here, people. There's no script in front of me. So, we're going to get into all of the news from the WNBA today, I would say this week, but I feel like there's so much news you can't really just do it week by week, which is why we do the podcast every day. This is also me realizing I haven't turned on my ring light, so I'm going to do that. And, just kind of, if you're watching on YouTube, now you can see my face. But let's get into the biggest bit of news that has come out today on Thursday. Right before we started recording this podcast, it came out on the internet, on social media. Let me just pull up so I get the credit right. So Sean Highkin tweeted that he found that there was some new trademarks filed for the WNBA. So they have filed 3 new trademark applications related to the Portland Fire. Now, if you've been following expansion, you know that there is a new expansion team coming to Portland in 2026. They have yet to officially announce any sort of, name, branding, or much about their team, quite honestly. And so this is news that they probably will be going back to the Portland Fire name if they're filing trademarks for that. And, it's the same name that they had when Portland was originally in the WNBA. And so, they'll be going back to that. But that's just like the big interesting news. I mean, we've all been waiting for this. It feels like they should have announced by now, given that Toronto is on the same timeline as them, given that they're both entering the league next May. Yeah, May is when the WNBA season starts. And Toronto has already, as you can see by my background, if you're watching on YouTube, has already released
a homer.
I am a homer, and I'm not going to be ashamed of that. But, I mean, Portland finally is catching up to what we're doing here. I mean, I got a planter, I got things, But, Coach, how do you feel about Portland going back to the name Fire?
It's funny because you guys, we were communicating right before we got on, and I was like, what are you talking about? And then I remembered when I was a young coach, I used to go out to Oregon to recruit. And aside from us getting to go to the Nike store for free and getting great prices and me being able to do all my Christmas shopping and mail it, I made it a point to attend, a couple of Portland Fire games when they were in existence in the ABL. I think that's the league, ABL. So I still have my Portland Fire mini ball somewhere in storage. And
gotta find it.
I thought that was pretty cool. Didn't realize that would be something that I could pull out all these years later.
Exactly. In terms of like the actual name, like in comparison to other names in the WNBA, like do you think it's cool? Do you think it's the right choice?
Honestly, I don't have a feeling one way or the other. It's probably smart, given that was the name before. There is going to be some name recognition from obviously the Portland population because they were there before. So in that sense, probably smart. In terms of, does it excite me? I don't feel one way or the other.
They have failed to move coach. I mean do better.
Do better.
I mean, the name thing is something that I've obviously been thinking about for the past few years, given, that, again, to be a homer, that Toronto has been in this process. And I mean, different circumstances, given that Toronto's name was leaked and people kind of were giving their opinions on it. Some people liked it, some people didn't. And so I think going back to something that has name recognition, that is something that they already have, like branding, they can kind of, go back to in terms of nostalgia. That's something that really does well in terms of, style and merchandise and stuff like that. And then just, I mean, I think it's pretty neutral. It's pretty, it's not going to ruffle many feathers. I did hear some rumors about them having trouble with copyright issues. So, maybe they were trying to go some in a different direction and couldn't, and then had to, step back and end up going to Portland or to Portland Fire. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just like finally, like it just seems like it's long overdue.
Yeah, and my other thought was, so did the original trademark, just was it abandoned, and they're able to do that because you
Mm,
have to, when you file a trademark, they have to go through the process and see if it's already been used before,
yeah.
and if it's been used, but they have a certain amount. They have benchmarks where you have to show you're using it, and if you don't show that, then it's abandoned, and someone else can pick it up and trademark it. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking happened. It's been, I don't know what year the Portland Fire folded, but I'm sure whoever had that trademark wishes that they kept it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, maybe that was the issue that they've been waiting for, is that they wanted this name and they've been in the process of trying to get ownership of that name. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's lots of different possibilities. Maybe we'll hear about it once they officially announce the name and give us kind of a backstory. I know that's something that people generally ask when a name comes out, is what's the backstory? Why did you go with this as opposed to the 17 billion other options in the world? But yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, sports team names for me are always interesting because there's such a fine line between, like, being lame and being cool and just, like, also being neutral. Like, I think it's interesting to see, like, why these teams decide to go with these names, what they have to do with, the location, what they have to do with the branding, what they have to do with the culture of the city.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's definitely, especially as we get into expansion in a time where so many things are trademarked and you don't have as much freedom as teams did in, like, the 80s, say, when a lot of NBA teams were booming and they were doing expansion in that sense. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm curious to see how they do the logo and the branding and how it kind of relates back to the Portland Fire of the past.
I have to go fish out my mini ball now.
Exactly. We gotta see it next, whenever you find it, you gotta bring it out. Um, yeah, so heading into that was news from this morning, but let's flash back to last night. There was one game in the WNBA. It was a back-to-back for the Connecticut Sun, and they faced the Phoenix Mercury, who were the sole team who didn't play in the six-game lineup on Tuesday. And so it's just been a very wild week. I'm sure you've heard, Coach, of WNBA action. And so, yeah, this game was not particularly as maybe heated as the ones in the past, but I mean, Phoenix ends up winning, and Connecticut, I mean, it still has their two wins of on the season. So, what were your thoughts from that game?
Well, in terms of Connecticut, impressed with Anissa Morrow. I think she had 12 or 14 points in a very short amount of time, and you can see what her skills were. She played well, and I already talked about Sinai Rivers being somebody that I think is going to be a really good player. Unfortunately, her team's not very good, so I doubt she'll be in consideration for Rookie of the Year. But just to watch her develop over the 12 games that they've had now is really good. So there wasn't anything I didn't see from Connecticut that I'd seen before, with the exception of now Anissa Morrall. You see what she's capable of, so can she sustain that for the rest of the season? For Phoenix, they are what's the word I'm looking for? They're not full strength in terms of getting full minutes back from Kalia Copper and Natasha
Yeah.
Mack, but I think having them back gives them an opportunity to finish in that, high upper middle class, if you will, of teams just below that, the top four. But Alyssa Thomas, almost, I'm gonna give her a triple double. I think she might have been one short, maybe a rebound short, but I'm going to give it to her because she played really well. Just having her handle the ball so much, and she's coming at you. You have to make a business decision when Alyssa Thomas is dribbling towards you. It's, do you really want to sacrifice your body? But having said that, she creates so many mismatches with her skill set that other people can eat from what she does. And I just really like the way that she played in having Natasha Mack, and I think Kalia Copper's still like on a minutes restriction. But even with the few minutes that she has, you can see how that team's going to be a team to reckon with, because now they have the people that had to play because Natasha Mack and Kalia Copper were out. People got some time under their belt, some real time experience, so they're able to contribute even more. So it'll be interesting to see where they end up.
Yeah, so I mean, Phoenix only won the game 83-75, and Anissa Morrow had 16 points actually.
Oh, I
Six,
shorted her.
yeah,
Sorry.
16 points, 9 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 steals was her stat line from last night, which incredibly impressive. I mean, we knew that she was a great player from her time at LSU and before that DePaul, but yeah, obviously her best game as a rookie so far. And then for Phoenix, I mean, um, yeah, Kalia Copper had 13 points in 22 minutes. Their leading scorer, I mean, they had a few. Alyssa Thomas had 14, and Lexi held. I don't know exactly what she wants to be called, but some places it's Lexi, some places it's Alexa. But she had 14 points as well. And someone who was really impressed. I mean, she went undrafted. I actually have her on my fantasy team. I swooped her up.
Do
Uh,
you?
yeah, I when she started playing really well a few weeks ago, she was still kind of just like lingering, so I scooped her up, and I mean, it's been impressive to watch what she's been able to do as someone who wasn't really on anybody's radar at the beginning of the season. So, I mean, a good win from Phoenix. They now sit in third in the WNBA standings, of course, behind Minnesota and New York. But I mean, Connecticut was only down by 8 points. It wasn't a blowout by any means.
Well, they play hard, partly because they have to, but
Yeah.
you got to give the coaching staff credit to figuring out a way to keep them bought in to playing hard with now a 2-10 record. I'm sure it's not easy. Marina Mabry, give her some credit. She didn't want to be there, and she is there, and it seems like I'm here, so I'm going to buy in while I'm here. In
Hmm.
terms of what she needs to do, it's unfortunate, but they cleared everything out, just tore everything down, and they're starting over. So it's a matter of how patient their fans will be with them with their quote unquote process.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see given that they're such a new team this year. They're going into a rebuild, and I mean, you're right in terms of Marina Mabry and her not wanting to be there. But I mean, I'm curious to see what happens next year in terms of how they build this team with all of the free agents around. If they're able to kind of attract any higher level players, given the fact that they do have two rookies in Sanaya Rivers and Anissa Morrow, who are showing promising play in their rookie season. And like you said, maybe they won't get rookie of the year, but they're still all rookie team. There's still some awards to be won by them. Not that that's like the biggest thing of the season, but to kind of switch into award talk, we were talking about what we wanted to talk about today on the podcast. And one thing that you mentioned is something that, yeah, I mean, I've been talking about with a lot of people as well, is the MVP race, and more specifically someone who has been left out of the MVP conversations, and that's Allisha Gray, who is playing in Atlanta Dream, of course, and just absolutely crushing her career stats in terms of points per game. I mean, she's at 20.4 points per game this season. Her career average is 13.4. And I mean, she's been injured in and out over the years, so maybe that's a reflection of that. But 20.4 points per game this season in the 95th percentile per her hoop stats. I mean, also, she's shooting 50.6% from the field. She's making 6.6 field goals per game, which again is like top in the league as well. And the Atlanta Dream have a winning record for the first time in a few years, given the amount of change that they've gone through. And so, yeah, like what is Allisha Gray doing that is getting her to that level, and why do you think she's not in the MVP conversation as she deserves to be?
She's been on a tear this year, and she is a very efficient scorer at all three levels. Even though she's left-handed, she still can get to that side. She is the queen of the n ones, and
Mhm.
I think that they would not be where they are without her. when they need scoring. Obviously, Ryan Howard, since Jordan Canada has come back, has been able to do more scoring since he's playing off the ball now. But she is the glue and the best player on that team, I think, in terms of all around skills. She can do it all. And it amazes me why she's not in that conversation. I don't know if it's because it's Atlanta and that's not, it's not a sexy pick in terms of people having conversations. Obviously, people want to think
Yeah.
about Minnesota. They want to think about the Liberty and taking nothing away from the people that are in the MVP conversation because they should be. But I do think she should be included given the work that she's put in. You mentioned all the stats. I'm just looking at the games and as
Yeah.
a coach and looking at what she does and what she brings to that team and where they would be without what she brings to that team. And I just think she should be in the conversation.
I mean, that's what we do. I look at the stats, you give me the bird's eye view. I mean, that's what the people come to listen to us for. But yeah, I mean, it's you're right. There's a difference between just looking at a box score and looking at someone play, and the fact that Gray can just kind of affect every part of the game. I mean, she's a great, you know, she's great at making opportunities for herself, like you said, and one queen. She is also just like I love watching those players who are so good on the court, but so like quiet as well. Like they just kind of quietly get 20 points per game. And before you even realize it, they're, scoring all these points. They have assists, they have rebounds, steals, et cetera, et cetera. And so she's one of those players that is not the most flashy when it comes to her game. And, there's a time and a place for that as well. But she's just like foundationally very good and just like enjoy, like, from a basketball, just like pure hoops perspective, just very fun to watch on the floor, especially now as Atlanta puts all these pieces together and is able to win a few more games because they've kind of just been on the cusp the past few years.
Yeah, I think the other piece to her too is that she can defend, and no one
Mm,
really talks about her ability on that end of the floor. But she definitely, with her height, athletic ability, is a really good defender, and it is always quiet. It's you look up and she scored 24 points, but if you're really paying attention, her points come at very crucial times when Atlanta needs them, and she takes it and sort of puts them on her back when they need to have runs. She'll have these barrages of scoring opportunities that she will keep them in the game or get them ahead. And I think people they she's not flashy. She's not out there on social media all the time. And but if you can from a pure basketball standpoint, if you're a fan of the game, you know that she should be in that MVP conversation.
yeah, for sure. And I mean, interestingly enough, when you go on the Her Hoop Stats the homepage and you look at top 25 players, top 2025 players, sorry, Her Hoop Stats kind of ranks them by win share as opposed to points per game. And Allisha Gray is right on top with 2.9 win share, tied with Nafisa Collier. And so if that is any indication of whether or not she should be in this conversation, I mean, she absolutely should, because she's up there, helping her team as much as Nafisa Collier is. And I mean, it's the weird thing about MVP because everybody has such a different perspective on what MVP means. And, things like who's higher in the standings matters more to some people than it does to other. Points per game matters more to some people than others. The stats matter more to some people, and other people just like to look and see how, like you said, just see how the game comes to these players. And so, it's like all of these awards, it's very there's no set like set of what am I trying to say here? Like
Criteria.
attribute criteria, that's the
Yeah,
word. Thank
yeah. It's
you.
it's it's very it's very subjective depending on your perspective.
Yeah.
Now, the literal term most valuable player, who is most valuable? Is it
Mhm.
most valuable to the league? Is it most valuable to your team? When I'm looking at it, it's
Mhm.
most valuable to your team. And more
Yes.
than likely, that means that your team is winning. You probably won't
Mhm.
find an MVP candidate that's in the bottom echelon
Yeah.
of the league. So it really depends on who's the perspective of the people that are voting.
Yep.
Sometimes if someone's won it a few times in a row, they get fatigued. They're like, she keeps getting it. Let's give it to somebody else. Or
Yeah.
you have a case where, it was probably razor thin last year. And Nafisa Collier right now, I think, is the front runner. So it really depends on the perspective of whoever's voting.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I was having this conversation with Tyler last week on the pod about how the past few years have kind of the MVP conversation has almost been like retributed from the year before. Like when you think about 2023, everybody thought that Asia would win, and then there was that whole fourth place vote thing. That is a huge storyline in 2024 when Asia Wilson ends up winning her third MVP award. And then the conversation in 2024 was surrounded about Nafisa Collier playing the best hoops of her life. If Asia Wilson wasn't on this big tear, she would be, the front runner. And then you fast forward to this year, and now Nafisa Collier is the front runner. And I mean, she's playing and like the numbers to be able to, you know, explain why she's the front runner for MVP, but it's just interesting given that these conversations are, you know, year to year just kind of following these players along. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot closer than maybe people will think. I do agree that Nafisa Collier is up there as well. And I think it just like ends up being a balance of all of these things. I don't think people or voters, and I mean, I don't have a vote. It's not like I'm saying that saying any of this by a perspective of actually having to vote, but I do think it should be a balance of statistics, how well your team is doing, how well your team does with and without you, I think is a big indication of whether or not someone should be MVP. And then again, yeah, I do think that like winning teams should be considered quite a lot when it comes to, especially when it's the margins are so thin and it's hard to pick. And I mean, that's why they do a ranked system, and that's why it ends up sometimes that people win because of how they were ranked. So yeah, I'm interested to see who ends up getting these third, fourth, fifth place votes as we
Right.
head into voting, but that's not for quite a while. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting conversation that Allisha Gray should definitely be in. But let's kind of fast forward to tonight when we think about the WNBA games. We have two games tonight. The Phoenix Mercury now are on a back to back. They'll play the New York Liberty at home, and then the Indiana Fever are starting a very long road trip west coast as they head out to Valhalla, as we're calling it, and face the Golden State Valkyries. So let's start with Phoenix and New York. I mean, Phoenix is a team that is looking, like we said, very good now with Kalia Copperback. They're kind of inching up into that top three, top four in the league. But I mean, New York is New York, and they have great home court advantage. They have, I mean, they're still missing Leonie Febish, but Jonquil Jones seems to be expected to play. Sabrina Ionescu has scored 30 plus points in multiple games in a row for the first time in her career. And of course, Brianna Stewart is steady as always. So, give me a little bit of your prediction for this game and what might be a factor as Phoenix faces New York.
Yeah, well, I think for Phoenix, my question would be if you had Copper on a minutes restriction, this is back to back, so how much will she be able to play tonight? And I don't think that Natasha Mack is on minutes restrictions. I'm not sure, but that'll be interesting because it'll tell in terms of what their rotation is going to be like. Are they going to go back to what they were before Copper and Mack came back, which was actually not bad. I've been very impressed with them in terms of what they've been able to do. As long as Alyssa Thomas is in the game,
Yeah.
that's the key. She needs to be on the floor all the time. Obviously, Satu Sabali does her thing, and she's going to get her 20 points. But in terms of making that team go, they have to have Alyssa Thomas on the floor, and so it'll be interesting to see if Copper is able to contribute the same way she did last night. In terms of New York, you mentioned that they.
Um, Not to interrupt you, but I just pulled up the status report. Clea Copper's actually out with that injury management, so she will not be
Okay,
playing.
so there you go. So it'll be
Yeah.
a little bit more skewed toward what they have been doing in the past, which has not been bad at all.
Mhm.
As long as they have Sably and Thomas in there.
Yeah.
In terms of New York, you mentioned Thebich not being there. I think that the players leaving for Eurobasket, this is in my view, glass half full for the teams that don't have players that they normally would have, because it's
Mhm.
going to give them an indication of what they're going to look like in the future. So when you look at New
Mhm.
York, not having Thebich means, in my mind, that Natasha Cloud needs to score at least 10 points. I don't know
Yep.
what she scored the other night, but when she's not scoring, you don't have somebody like Thebich in there, and obviously Burke is, I think, a shot in the arm off the bench. But if Natasha Cloud does not score, that means you're playing 5-on-4. They're going to allow
Mhm.
her. She's not hitting those shots, so then everything gets crowded for Jonquel Jones and Stewie, and also for UNESCO, even though she's been able to score 30 points. But I think that that's going to be a key in terms of whether or not she's going to be able to score, to just to give those other three players some more space on the floor. And I've mentioned before, I think their bench is probably the best bench overall in the league. But this gives New York an opportunity to see, what kind of combinations they can use as long as Fevich is gone. And then, in the playoffs, sometimes Jonquel Jones gets in foul trouble. So what will that look like
Mhm.
if she's in foul trouble and you have to play Sabali, and who I think is also on a minutes restriction, and
Yeah.
they've been playing Izzy Harrison more.
Mhm.
So this is an opportunity for them to continue to see what kind of lineups they can manipulate once we get into the postseason. I do think that New York will win, but
Mhm.
I think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree with all those points. I did make sure to look. John Cole Jones will play tonight, so other than Leonie Febish, the New York Liberties injury report is clean. And then flipping over to the Indiana Fever, they're playing the Golden State Valkyries, as I mentioned. Dewana Bonner is not with the team due to personal reasons, and Carla Leite is questionable for Golden State due to a back injury. Another thing that just came up today is that Steph White will not be with the team as well due to personal issues. So they will have one of their assistants stepping up as head coach. And so, yeah, I mean, the Golden State Valkyries have been very interesting, especially at home, given the fact that they've given a lot of these teams that have maybe more experienced talent a run for their money. So I'm curious to see how this team plays against an Indiana Fever team, of course, that has Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, and these players that are able to score a lot of points. But from your perspective, what are the main things for both teams going into this game?
Well, for Golden State, I thought it was brilliant for them to use a matchup zone against Seattle when they played them, because very few teams do that. And I thought it was a smart
Mhm.
decision because they had so many new players because people left for Eurobasket. So when you're playing that
Yeah.
matchup zone, you have a lot more help. It's a little bit easier to communicate if you're not playing player to player defense. And it really caused Seattle some problems. I think Agumke only scored 6 points, and I've said before that she needs to score for them to win. So I just thought that was a brilliant tactical move. Now they're playing Indiana, so Indiana's had time now to see that and to game plan for it. So it'll be
Hmm.
interesting. But Golden State plays hard. They have Kayla Thornton, who's been really good for them in terms of stepping up and shouldering some offensive load for them. When she hits a couple threes and she starts feeling really good and she starts taking more, and obviously that's what that team does. But I really think Monique Billings has been a nice surprise for them, and she's somebody that is just the perfect example of why you need more roster spots. She needs to be on a team. She's that good. She should not be sitting at home. She's done quite a bit for them coming off the bench. So we'll see what happens with that. With Indiana, when they got Caitlin back, it was, you could just, or at least I could just see the mental lightness. Like they felt lighter mentally because she was back,
Yeah.
and it opened up the floor in terms of spacing. Obviously, she has a flair for the dramatic. I think those, what was it, three threes in 45 seconds or something like that.
Yeah.
And so Golden State, they're going to have to make some decisions because Caitlin Clark, you're never going to stop her from scoring. But if
Hmm.
you're looking at slowing her down, what do you do? Well, you could pick her up full court
Yeah.
and make her work a little bit hard and take some time off the clock. You could crowd her space and not give her that opportunity to get those threes off. You could trap her and make her get rid of the basketball. Uh, there are a lot of different things that you can do, but you're not going to stop her from scoring. You're just going to try to slow her down.
Yeah.
I do think that when she's in the game, obviously Aaliyah Boston has a better game because of Caitlin Clark's vision and I think Aaliyah Boston feels more comfortable. It's like her blankie whenever Caitlin Clark is in there. She knows she's going to get the ball in positions where she can score.
Yeah.
So she just has to work hard, do her work, and Caitlin's going to find her. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how Golden State decides to play Indiana from that aspect.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, should be interesting. We then have a big weekend of WNBA action, which I'm sure will be covered tomorrow here on the Her Hoop Stats podcast. Not by us, though. So come back to see our friends talk about what's coming up for the weekend. But, as always, Coach, it is great to talk to you about all things hoops. Make sure to, subscribe. Again, I'm going to do my spiel. Make sure to subscribe here on YouTube,
Get it in.
Instagram, Blue Sky, on the website, herhoopstats.com newsletter, and just the website in general, which just has a plethora of knowledge for you to be able to get your takes off online or with your friends. So make sure to check those out. And I mean, you can follow Coach and I both on social media as well. Our handles are here if you're watching on YouTube. So as always, great to have our weekly chat. As hopefully we'll get your Portland Fire mini ball out in the
I got to go
next
find that.
few weeks. Yeah, I gotta go find that. But thanks so much, everyone, for listening again. And we will see you tomorrow for another episode of the Her Hoop Stats podcast.